So why Europe is now having the same guns and butter discussion that we're having in the United States. If Europe spends money on military security, then it will have domestic insecurity, because in Europe, governments are not allowed to run a budget deficit of more than 3% of their GDP. Well, if 3% of their GDP is to be spent on arms, then that does not leave money to be spent domestically on subsidizing the industry for the huge increase in gas and oil prices NATO's war in Ukraine caused. There's no way of somehow helping Europe, and especially Germany, get over the depression that it's pushed itself into by joining the U.S. as a satellite country. So the key to politics today, you've seen over the weekend, the Alternative for Deutschland, the right-wing nationalist party in Germany, received many more votes. It's the only party in Germany that is urging not to participate in the Ukraine war. Well, you can just imagine the Christian Democrats said, being Christian, they say, we want to ban this party in Germany. It's a neo-Nazi party. So think of the irony of all this. The Christian Democrats, the Social Democrats, and the Greens of Germany are all backing the Nazis in the Ukraine. And yet the one party that's against backing the Nazis is threatened with being banned in Germany as if it were a Nazi party, instead of the party trying to try to stop the support of Nazism in the Ukraine. And you can just see the problem that's occurring in the United Nations in the last few days. The Ukrainian position that we're in an ethnic war. The Russian speakers are subhuman. That is the Ukraine claim. We have to exterminate them. We have to kill them all. That racist, ethnic destructiveness all of a sudden is exactly the same language that you're hearing from Netanyahu and the Likud party in Israel against the Palestinians. Again, total, it's ethnic warfare. And both Ukraine and Israel are both apartheid states, and this is how apartheid states work. And the parties that are opposing the apartheid states are accused of being Nazis. I think 100 years ago, some German philosopher said Americans lack a sense of irony, but they do have a sense of irony in the sense of an Orwellian language where every word means exactly the opposite of what it's done, sort of a doublethink type of vocabulary in dealing with foreign policy, economic policy, or whatever. In American sports, whether it's football or baseball, we have two leagues. There's American Football League and a National Football League. And in baseball, American League and a National League. Americans think in terms of foreign policy like this. There's one team, the American team. We call that the Democratic team. The Democratic team basically includes Ukraine, Israel, and other teams that are anything but democratic. As you've seen the politics in both countries being torn apart in the last few days. The national team is what America calls the autocracy team. Well, autocracy really, it's a nationalistic breakaway. The only way that you can break away from one worldism, the Americans saying there's only one world and we're running it, is for countries to break away one by one and work with each other in a kind of national federation of alternative policies. That's what we've been speaking about on these interviews for the last few years. A national team means governments are part of a mixed economy. Government spending is needed for basic infrastructure, because if the governments do not spend the basic transportation, communications, other infrastructure, then this will be privatized. And if it's privatized, it's going to be financialized as a monopoly. If we want to avoid a monopoly and we want to lower the cost of living and prevent a kind of special interest rentier sector, then we have to we have to have the mixed economy. That's what the whole world is dividing into. That's what the fight in Ukraine is all about. Again, last week, President Biden said, we're fighting in Ukraine against China. He very explicit, Biden said, we have to win in Ukraine because if we lose to Russia there, then China will think that it can win. So this is the big American League versus the government league, or you could call it the barbarism league versus the civilization league, as Rosa Luxemburg would have expressed it. I think we can think of our own names for what we're going to do. Right now, they're simply using a neutral name, the BRICS Plus. But essentially, you're saying if you look at what's happening in Ukraine and Israel right now, in terms of how is the world dividing between two different civilizations, really, the Western civilization and that's gone downhill, and the rising real civilization outside of the U.S. bloc. You can look at events. This is what all of the events are about, the fighting about, the budget is about, the domestic political reform is about.
南方为什么是南方？南方为什么是这个现状？我们到底将来会是一个什么样的发展方向？大家好，我是温铁军。我们准备了一个很重要的系列课程，统称为叫做南方世界观，希望大家适当的集中点精力，能够跟我们一起把这个5讲24节的课上下来。